Super Rugby Power Rankings for round number 3. Remember, we still haven't had any Trans-Tasman action just yet, so we're still keeping the Power Rankings split into New Zealand and Australian sides of the ditch thus far. Hopefully we can find a way to amalgamate them once things get going. But yeah, as always, we'll rank the teams, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how things are shaping up. Genuinely, the worst looking team in Super Rugby, either side of the Tasman thus far, is most certainly these guys. I'll put you a little bit higher so I can see you. The Melbourne Rebels. They lost to the Drua and looked bad. They're genuinely looking quite bad, the Rebels, unfortunately. I'm not sure what the answer is there. They've certainly got a better squad than what they're looking on paper. I'm not sure if it's just the new coaching staff still settling in, but they've had the entire off-season to get things right. And yeah, they're just looking a bit rudderless at the moment. And yeah, I wouldn't be backing them to get a win anytime soon. I mean, I would love it as much as anybody else for them to surprise us and show us something else. But thus far, they are poor. Highlanders on the New Zealand side of the conference, they are winless. They are none from 3. And where else can I put them when they haven't got a win, right? If I had to put them up against Moana Pacifica right now, I still think they would beat them. But they've only played one game, Moana Pacifica, and it was better than maybe we expected against the Crusaders. So I still think the Highlanders would beat them. But the Highlanders haven't been looking that flash thus far. Not terrible. There's a big difference between 6th here and 6th here. The Rebels have genuinely looked quite bad. The Highlanders have looked good in patches. They've just not got any results just yet. These guys, the Endura, they got their first win. So the same spot for them as last week. They are 5th on the log for me in Australia. I still think there's potential. I still think they're growing. I've been looking at their stats, and I still think there's some areas for them to clean up. The line out, even though they're actually pretty good at making broken play look more natural, so they almost look better when the line out didn't go to plan. But yeah, if they can clean up the handling and just that playing, match fitness and chemistry that comes when you play together week in, week out, I still think this team's got room to grow. I don't think they're anywhere near their best just yet. I mentioned Moana Pacifica earlier. Like I said, I still would back the Highlanders if these guys were to play today. But speaking of teams that have got room to grow, Moana Pacifica is certainly one of those. Now, it's a bit hard to get a read on where they're at because they played the Crusaders and they got well beaten. But maybe not by the margin people thought it was going to be. But then you got to take into account the Crusaders were far from full strength. So then I've got to also balance that with the fact that the Moana Pacific guys have had a disrupted training build-up with COVID cases. So basically, long story short, it's still too early to know just where Moana Pacifica are at the moment. But early signs from one game are not terrible. So there's still a preseason game against the Chiefs. They were looking like they could be just getting flogged every week. But we're a step better than that now. So fingers crossed for them. Waratahs have still got in 4th. For the Aussie side of things, yeah, I think I probably said the same thing last week. They're still looking better than they did last year, which is not difficult because last year they were shocking. They were kind of where the Rebels are right now. But they still need to be a bit more clinical, and I think that will come. I think Darren Coleman's still got a bit that he can work with these guys to give them that bit of clinical edge, which they seem to be just lacking at the moment. So optimistic for everyone's favourite Australian team. The Waratahs, Chiefs I've got in 4th. On the New Zealand side, they've gone down 2 spots. Basically because they went from a 100% record to a 50% record. This is the problem with doing power rankings so early in the season. We don't have a heck of a lot of data to go with, but Chiefs in 4th. They lost to the Blues. If not for Bryn Gatland's boot, they could have been up in 2nd. But yeah, you lose to the Blues, you go down a spot. That's just the way it works. Yeah, we'll see how they go. The Force I've got in 3rd, and I do think the Force against the Tars right now would be a really good matchup. These teams seem kind of there or thereabouts. I don't think either of them is quite up to where the Brumbies or Reds are at, but they are looking in the same kind of neighbourhood. I might back the Waratahs. Maybe it would depend if it was kind of who was playing at home, who was playing away. But both those sides are looking in a similar area, and I'm hoping the Force can keep pushing on as well, because they've got a couple of game breakers in that squad. I mean, they've had a couple of issues actually. They've suspended a couple of their guys for having a couple of glasses of wine on the plane. Like Andrew Reedy, I think, was one. And was it Byron Ralston? They had a glass or two of wine on the plane. They didn't get drunk. They didn't cause a scene. But there was like the senior leadership team in their team had basically said no drinking. And these guys had a glass or two. So they're out. So we'll have to wait and see if that has any effect on them in their next game. Blues I've got in 3. So they got the same record as the Chiefs at the moment, a win and a loss. But I'm basically waiting the fact that the Blues win is more recent than the Chiefs one. The Chiefs have got a more recent loss, albeit away from home. So I've given a little bit more weight to the Blues. So the Blues are ever so slightly ahead of the Chiefs. Trust me, it's not by much. They got that win by the skin of their teeth, man. They probably didn't deserve to win that game against the Chiefs if I'm fair. But yeah, I couldn't have handled 2 Blues losses at the death in a row, so thankfully they did get the job done. Still not 100% sold. Second in the Aussie Conference, goodness me, I've just dropped them. Hopefully that's not an ominous sign. The Brumbies, you'll notice this Aussie side is exactly the same as it was last week. The Brumbies are still there. I don't think they've left home yet, right? They're 3-0. Kind of solid but not spectacular win in their game against the Tars at home, so yeah, I don't think we're fully there with where the Brumbies are just at, but they're still looking pretty promising. The Hurricanes I've got in second. I wouldn't have picked that a couple of weeks ago, but they've also been quietly just chugging along nicely. Good victory for them against the Highlanders, so they've got a positive record. 2 wins in a row. The Reds, I still think, are looking the best of the Aussie teams. James O'Connor was properly running the show for them last week, so despite some disruptions, having Tupou on the bench and Salakailo took on off injured, they still managed to look genuinely better than the Force, which was pleasing, especially away from home at a disruptive travel build-up. And the Crusaders can play their second string team and still get a solid win against the new boys Moana Pacifica. I still think the Crusaders are the team to beat. I think if you amalgamate these tables, no matter what happens, the Crusaders are still going to be the team to beat. That's just been the way it's been in Super Rugby for several years now. But yeah, those are the rankings. There's a bit of chopping and changing with the New Zealand teams. Blues are up. Moana Pacific is down with their first game. The Chiefs are down. Hurricanes are up. Aussie side still looking kind of steady as she goes. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.